Hey guys, welcome back with another interesting video on Microsoft SC900 Security, Compliance and Identity Fundamentals exam. I did this exam recently with a score of 964, so I'm going to share what are the important points we need to remember in each module. There are 4 modules, so I'm going to share that with all of you. So if anyone is interested to write this exam, it would be really very helpful. My name is Sheikh Rashid Javed. I am Microsoft Certified Trainer, Certified EC Council Instructor and Certified Cybercrime Intervention Officer with almost 20 plus global certifications. My area of interest is network security and cloud. I keep traveling to different parts of the world where I discuss with a lot of organizations, private, government related to network security and cloud global certifications. So let's get started here with SC900 Security, Compliance and Identity Fundamentals. So I did this exam recently, a few days back on August 13, 2022, and I was able to pass this exam, and we needed to get a score of 700, but luckily I was able to get 964. So there are 4 modules in SC900. For module 1 talks about describe basic concepts of security, compliance and identity. Module 2 is on describe the capabilities of Microsoft Identity and Access Management Solution. Then third module is on describe the capabilities of Microsoft Security Solution, and the fourth is on describe the compliance management capabilities in Microsoft. So this is a weightage with respect to all these modules. Describe concept of security, compliance and identity. 10 to 15% questions will be coming out of this module. Then capabilities of Microsoft Identity and Access Management Solution, almost 25 to 30%. Then capabilities of Microsoft Security Solution, 30 to 35%. Then the capabilities of Microsoft Compliance Solutions, 25 to 30%. This exam does not include on any hands-on testing component. I'll surely come up with all the practice questions which we need to go through, but right now this shows us what are the important things we need to remember with respect to each module. So if we go to module 1, which is describe basic concept of security and compliance and identity, so let's see what we need to remember, because they'll be asking questions based on those concepts. So I was able to extract those important points out of the book. There's a reference guide, there's an instructor guide. I have gone through the instructor guide and I was able to come up with important points, and it really helped me a lot. Now you could see that I was able to get 964. I assure you that is going to be helpful for anyone who is interested to write your exam SC900. But the first thing is that you need to have an overview, and after that just go through these important points. So in module 1 there's a shared responsibility. So what is the shared responsibility model? This identifies which security tasks are handled by the cloud provider and which tasks are handled by you as the customer. So the responsibility is being shared. It makes those responsibilities clear, so there's no blaming. Customer is always responsible for the information or data, devices, accounts and identity. So they ask a question. I was able to see a question based on what's the responsibility of a customer. No matter is it a SaaS, is it PaaS, is it IaaS, customer is always responsible for information, data, devices, accounts and identities. Please remember that. Now this another model which we call layered security. It's a defense in depth which uses layered approach to security. So there's a question where they describe something and there'll be a keyword layered security. I was able to see a question which was talking about layered security, so that's going to be your defense in depth. There's another model which we call zero trust model. Why zero trust? Now we don't trust. There's a zero trust because of insider attacks. Earlier we were trusting anyone which is within the perimeter is secure. I mean, we used to trust our employees, but yes, zero trust model assumes everything is on open and untrusted network, even resources behind the firewall of the corporate network. So there was a question based on this concept. So like what is the something related to zero trust model. So there's a resource behind the firewall, you should also not trust that. So please remember that. Zero trust assumes everything is on an open and untrusted network, even resources behind the firewall of the corporate network. So zero trust module principle is trust no one, verify everything. So guiding principles: verify explicitly. What does that mean? You have to verify everything. Least privilege, you should give a minimum privilege, principle of least privilege access, and you should always assume breach. That means you need to identify everything. So those signals could be coming from your identities, those could be coming from your devices, applications, data, infrastructure, or networks. So this is what we need to remember when it comes to zero trust. Please remember all those things in zero trust model. What is encryption? Making data unreadable and unusable to unauthorized viewers. So there'll be a question where they'll describe this line. There's a technique of making, I was able to see a question, technique of making data unreadable and unusable to unauthorized viewers. That technique is what we call encryption. Because this is fundamentals exam, so they are not going that deep, but just fundamental concepts should be clear. Now, three terms are here. We need to understand what's the difference, because I have seen a question where you'll be getting confused. Is it data residency or is it data sovereignty? So what is data residency? Data residency regulations govern the physical location where data can be stored and how and when it can be transferred, processed, or accessed internationally, like GDPR and all that. So it talks about where the physical location of the data. So they'll mention in the question, right? You need to remember those keywords: physical location, where the data can be stored, and how and when it can be transferred, processed, or accessed internationally. Now, what is data sovereignty? So personal data is subject to the laws and regulations of the country or region in which it is physically collected, held, or processed. Now this is related to a country where it is physically collected, held, or processed. Subjected to laws and regulations of the country or region in which it is physically collected, held, or processed. That's your data sovereignty. And what is data privacy? Providing notice and being transparent about the collection, processing, use, and sharing of personal data are fundamentals of principle of privacy laws and regulations. So if I collect your data, I need to tell you, how I use it, when I use it, how I process it, how I collect it. That's data privacy. So this is clear. But there'll be a confusion between these two terms. Please understand a little difference between these two terms. And there's a question in the exam. Identity is the way in which people and things are identified, right? We say someone's identity. So authentication is the process, it's a process of proving that a person is who they say they are. That's a technical definition. And you will see a question where they will ask some, what is the term where a person is who they say they are, where you verify. That process is what we call authentication. Authorization determines the level of access or the permission an authenticated person has to your data and resource. Now what he is authorized to do after getting authenticated. So authentication is like making it sure that he says who he is. Like if I have my email address and password, I need to prove that. And then authorize, what I am authorized to do after that. So please remember those lines, they're very important. 4 pillars of identity infrastructure: one is administration, one is authentication, one is authorization, and one is auditing. So administration is maintaining, creating, and all those accounts, and then auditing is auditing those things which you create, like tracking user actions and all. An identity provider creates, maintains, and manages identity information while offering authentication, authorization, and auditing service. When you set up single sign-on to work between multiple identity providers, this is what we call federation. So if they ask some anything related to this, that's what we call federation. So federation is establishing trust between identity providers, in short. So a server which is running Active Directory domain service is what we call a domain controller. ADDS doesn't natively support mobile devices, SaaS applications, line of business applications that require modern authentication. So that is where you need Azure Active Directory, because if you see your traditional directory, it doesn't support mobile device, it doesn't support your SaaS applications, it doesn't support LOB applications. That's the reason you require modern authentication, which will be provided by Azure AD. So there's also something which we call Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework. When you adopt a cloud, you need to go through a few steps. First is define strategy, then you plan, then you become ready, then you adopt the cloud, then you govern, then you manage, and then you secure. So you got to remember this, because they ask a question where you need to remember. They will ask, for example, what comes after adoption, what are the steps which come after adoption or before adoption. So this is a keyword DPRAGM, like you define, you plan, you ready, make it ready, you adapt, you govern, you manage, and you secure your cloud. So please remember this. There's a question based on the sequence here. Now this was it about module 1. Let's see what they talk about in module 2. So describe the capabilities of Microsoft Identity and Access Management solution. Lot of terms, lot of things to remember here. First thing is that Azure's Active Directory is Microsoft's cloud-based identity and access management service, and it has four licenses. One is free, one is Office 365, one is Premium 1 and Premium 2. So most of the features come with P1 and P2. Azure AD identity types: one is user, service principal, manage identity, and device. So let's understand them. What is service principal? This is the identity for an application. An application also needs an identity. That's what we call service principal. And what's managed identity? So something which is managed by Azure. So sorry, service principal automatically managed in Azure AD, and it eliminates the need for developer to manage the credentials. That's what we call managed identity. Now there are two types of devices. This is how you whether you want to register a device or whether you want to join a device. So they surely ask a question. I was able to see a question based on this concept. So this is support for bring your own device. So user can access your organizational resources using his personal device, so without requiring organizational account. So there was a question where they give a scenario that user doesn't require organizational account. So what kind of option he can choose? So this is very important, that user is going to bring his own device, so he doesn't require organizational account to sign into the device. It also provides a support for Windows 10 or above, iOS, Android, and Mac OS. Please remember this line also. And Azure AD join device: a device joined to Azure AD through an organizational account. If you have an organizational account, then you go for this option. Devices are generally owned by the organization. Very important. Supports Windows 10 or above except Home Edition. They might ask a question. Please remember, Win Server 2009 VMs on Azure. But this is exception, right? It supports Win Server 2019 VMs on Azure also, but not this. So please remember, these keywords here. They ask a question based on this concept. There are two different Azure external identities. One is B2B and one is B2C. So what is B2B? What's the difference? It allows to share your organizational applications and services with guest users from other organizations represented in the same directory as employees, but with a user type of guest. But B2C, customer identities access management solution, allows external users to sign in with their preferred social, enterprise, or local account identities to get SSO to your applications. External identities are managed separately from employees, an authentication solution that you can customize with your brand. So there was a question, and this was a kind of keyword, a line, an authentication solution that you can customize with your brand. So what was the option? So this was the exact line I was able to see in the exam. So please remember those keywords if you want to pass this exam. Now this doesn't mean that it's a full reference guide. It's just an overview. So you need to first go through the content, and before you go for exam, please go through this reference guide, quick reference guide. Hybrid identity authentication. So here what are the options we have? We have password hash synchronization, password through authentication, or federal authentication. Now let's see what's the difference. So PHS is simplest. Authentication happens in Azure AD. It is highly available. It works even if on-prem AD goes down. So please remember about PHS, all these keywords. PTA, this is password validation, happens on-prem. Now what's the difference? Here it happens on the cloud. Here it happens on PM. It also runs agent. So they will ask you a question where they will give a scenario. This technique runs an agent, and it large infra is required. So here they can ask, it's the simplest. So that is the reason I have just mentioned these keywords, because when they design a question, they will be including those keywords. Federation, this is for the organizations that have advanced features such as single sign-on using smart cards or certificate, or single sign-on using on-prem MFA or third-party solution. Azure AD may hand off authentication to ADFS, which happens on-prem. So these are the differences. Now Azure AD authentication methods, what are the different authentication methods? So they will give a question and you have to choose multiple answers. I was able to see this question. So you got to remember, for Azure AD authentication, you can use password, you can use phone, you can use OAuth, you can either go passwordless with Windows Hello or FIDO or Authenticator app. So what is Windows Hello for Business? It is a two-factor authentication. You can use a key or a certificate plus something you know. What do you know? Your password or your PIN or something you have. You have your phone or you have a device where we can send you a code. And FIDO is your fast identity online. It is open standard. You can use either a USB or Bluetooth or NFC communication here. MFA is something you know, something you have, or something you are. Something you know. What do you know? So you know your PIN, you know your password, you know your email address. What do you know? Or you have a device, you have a phone, or something you are, your biometric, what you are. For verification authenticator app, Hello for Business, FIDO, OAuth, SMS and voice can be used. So please understand the difference. For the authentication, this is for Azure AD authentication, this is for MFA. So they will ask a question with a lot of options where you need to select 3. What's the security default? This is a set of basic identity security mechanism which is recommended by Microsoft to just get started. This is your SSPR. This is for password reset, self service password reset. It's a feature of Azure AD that allows users to change or reset their password without admin or help desk involvement. So there was a question based on the scenario where you can save some kind of resources or money, because what happens if people start calling to admin to reset the password, there'll be a lot of loss of those kind of calls coming in, infrastructure and resource and all that. So here you can just save that. So SSPR authentication methods, one is a mobile app notification, mobile app code, or you can use an email, mobile phone, office phone, or security question. So please remember these authentication methods for SSPR, for MFA, for Azure AD, because they ask a question based on this concept. So security questions are not used as an authentication method during a sign-in event. Admins cannot use security question as verification method with SSPR. Very important. Now what is password write back? This allows users to use their updated credentials with on-prem device and applications without a delay. So if you change your password on the cloud, it will be in sync with your on-prem if you are using that a hybrid scenario where you have on-prem connected to cloud with Azure AD Connect. And password protection is a feature of Azure AD that reduces the risk of users setting weak password. So this is very important. There was a question based on this also, where what is password protection. So what will happen? It will prevent users setting up the weak password. Weak password is going to compare that with a dictionary or a globally banned password list or customized banned password list. So it will prevent users setting up weak password. What is conditional access? It provides additional layer of security implemented through policies. Conditional access signals could be users or group membership, name, location information. It could be devices, application, real-time sign-in risk detection, like sign-in request not authorized by the identity provider, cloud apps or actions, or user risk where account could be compromised. So conditional access is a feature of paid Azure AD editions, not the free one. So that means P1 or P2. And RBAC is a role-based access control, managing access using your role, what role you have and what you can do with that. So custom roles require P1 and P2. So most of these services require P1 and P2. We discussed about licenses, free Office 365 P1 and P2. Now what is entitlement management? It's an identity governance feature that enables organizations to manage identity and access lifecycle at a scale. It automates access request workflows. It access assignments, reviews and expiration. PIM, entitlement management, access review, identity protection, you need to have P2. They are features of P2. Azure AD Access Review enable organizations to efficiently manage group membership, access to enterprise applications and role assignment to ensure right people have access to resources. Now what is PIM? PIM, Privileged Identity Management. It enables you to manage control, monitor access to important resources or critical resources in your organization. What is identity protection? It helps in automate the detection and remediation of identity-based risk, investigates those risks using in portal, export the risk detection data to third-party utilities for further analysis. Signer risk, it could be someone trying to access from anonymous IP, a typical travel, it could be a malware linked IP, unfamiliar sign-in properties, it could be a password spray attack, it could be Azure AD or threat intelligence. Now let's see what we need to remember in module 3, which is describe the capabilities of Microsoft security solutions. So this is very important. You can associate only one network security group to each subnet and interface in a VM. The same NSG can be applied to as many different subnets and interface as you can choose, right? But you can associate only one NSG to either an interface or a subnet, but the same NSG can be applied to as many as subnets. Like you have a person can have a single map, and that map can be shared with multiple people. But a person can only have single map. If he has two maps, he'll be getting confused. But multiple people can have the same map because maybe they follow the same route. What is Azure Bastion? This is platform as a service. This is secure and seamless RDP and SSH connectivity to your VMs directly from portal using TLS. So yeah, there was a question based on the exact line. There was a scenario and there was an exact line. So no need of public IP or NSG, not exposing RDP SSH port to outside world. It can be created per VNet with the support for VNet peering. So it can be created per VNet, not per machine, per virtual net. So for each virtual net you can have one Bastion, and then you can connect to any machine in that network with that Bastion host. Azure Storage Service Encryption, it encrypts data at rest. Transparent data encryption protects secure database and data warehouse. So what is a Key Vault? It is centralized cloud service for storing application secrets. So this is very important to remember what these terms are. What is Cloud Security Posture Management? To improve your cloud security management, it's going to assess your systems and automatically alerts security staff when a vulnerability is found. Microsoft Defender for Cloud is a tool for security posture management and threat protection. It is going to continuously assess, secure and defend your cloud. So it has two modes. One is Microsoft Defender for Cloud free, and one is Microsoft Defender for Cloud with enhanced security features. So other defenders which you have, which you're going to remember: Microsoft Defender for Server, for App Service, for Storage, for SQL, Kubernetes, Container Registries, Key Vault, Resource Manager, DNS, Open Source Relational Protection. So these are the different defenders which is being provided here by Microsoft. Azure Security Benchmark, it provides prescriptive best practices and recommendations to help improve the security of workload, data and service on Azure. So security baseline for Azure apply guidance from the ASB to the specific service for which it is defined. Sentinel is scalable. It's a cloud native SIEM or SOAR. So there was a question based on this scenario. They were asking what is that device which is a scalable cloud native. It's a SIEM or SOAR. Particularly you can see this term: security event or security information or event management, and security orchestration and automation. It's just doing automation and all that. So it delivers intelligent security analytics, threat intelligence, alert detection, threat visibility, proactive hunting and threat response. So these are the features for Microsoft Sentinel. Instance or group of related alerts. So there was a question where they're asking about if you see a group of related alerts, that's what we call instead. So that together create an actionable possible threat that you can investigate and resolve. So security playbook, yes, there was a question, is a collection of procedures that can help analysts to automate and simplify tasks and orchestrate a response. So there were a lot of options in the question. They were asking which is a collection of procedures that can help to automate, especially you can see the keywords automate and simplify. Microsoft 365 Defender helps in detection, prevention, investigation and response to threats across endpoints, identities, emails and applications. So this is, you got to remember, 365 is for endpoints, identities, emails and applications. So similar to that, we have Microsoft Defender for Office 365 is going to safeguard your organization against malicious threats which is posed by your email messages, links, collaboration tools including MS Teams, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, and other Office clients. Surely there'll be a question based on what is going to protect. You got to remember these, SharePoint, OneDrive, MS Teams, and all. So there are two plans. Yes, there was a question, on the plan. So the question was about, these things, threat trackers and all. So what are these the features of plan 1 or plan 2? So plan 1, the features are safe attachment, safe link, safe attachment for SharePoint, OneDrive, MS Teams, anti-phishing protection, real-time detection. So this plan has all these features plus threat trackers, threat explorer, automated investigation and response, attack simulator, advanced hunting, investigate alerts and instance. So there was a question where they asking, these are the features. So these were the features, and they were asking, is it for plan 1 or plan 2? Microsoft Defender for Endpoint protects your endpoints, preventing, detecting, investigating, and responding to advanced threats for Windows 10 and Microsoft Cloud services. There's also a Microsoft Defender for Cloud apps. It's a cloud access security broker. This provides rich visibility to your cloud services, controls over data travel, analytics to identify and combat different cyber threats across all your Microsoft and third-party cloud services. It also can discover shadow IT. So they'll ask you, which of them can discover the shadow IT, and the answer has to be cloud apps. So what is CASB? It's a cloud access security broker. It acts as a gatekeeper to broker real-time access between your enterprise users and cloud resources. They use visibility to shadow IT, threat protection, data security, and compliance. So these are the features. So surely, there's a question on this also, which I have seen in the exam, a recent exam. Microsoft Defender for Identity uses your on-prem AD. Yes, there was a question based on this. They were asking, it uses your on-prem AD signals, data to identify, detect, and investigate advanced threats, compromised identities, and malicious insiders. So that's going to be your Microsoft Defender for Identity. So Microsoft 365 Defender portal coordinates detection, prevention, investigation, and response across endpoints, identities, email, and applications to provide protection against sophisticated attacks with security health of your organization. So please remember what it does. Now last module is describe the compliance management capabilities in Microsoft Azure, module 4. So here they will ask a question on this term here. So anything which provides a feature which provides a variety of content, tools, and other resources about Microsoft security, privacy, and compliance practices. It provides audit reports, security assessment, and compliance guidelines, guides. That's going to be your Microsoft Service Trust portal. Microsoft privacy principles. Please remember these principles. They're going. They will ask a question where you need. They'll be asking some options here. So these are the privacy principles. One is control, transparency, security, strong legal protection, no content-based targeting, benefits to you as a customer. Now, what is Microsoft Priva? It's a new category of features in Microsoft Compliance Center, providing solutions targeted at data privacy. Priva comes from privacy, right? So it helps you understand the data your organization stores by automating discovery of personal data assets and providing visualization of essential information, provides tools and capabilities to enable organizations to manage compliance. So this another one which is PureView. So Priva and Purview, or PureView, this automates data discovery by providing data scanning and classification as a service for assets across the organization data estate. So please remember what they do. Microsoft Purview Records Management help an organization look after their legal obligations. Purview Communication Compliance help minimize communication risk by enabling organization to detect, capture, and take remediation action for inappropriate message. With information barrier, the organization can restrict communication among specific group of users. Yes, there was a question based on this term here. Exactly, if we remember this, we'll be able to answer that question. E-discovery, there was a question on this also. It's a process of identifying and delivering electronic information that can be used as an evidence in legal cases. Auditing solutions in Microsoft Purview help organizations effectively respond to security events, forensic investigations, internal investigations, and compliance obligations. So there are two options here. One is standard. It can retain audit record for up to 90 days, but premium can retain audit logs longer, I think 365 days. So there was a question where they ask which feature can retain logs longer than 90 days. And Azure policy is designed to help enforce standards and assess compliance across your organization. Azure Blueprint provides a way to define a repeatable set of Azure resources, rapidly provision and run new environment in line with compliance. Right? So this is it about all those terms. Now it is very important that we understand we go through all the book, the reference book, which has got, I guess, approx 200 or 180 or 170 pages. Let's assume 200 pages. So we need to go through the book, and after that we need to go through these important terms, because it's going to be really helpful. As I was able to get 964, I just have gone through the book, and then I did a little bit of practice questions, and I just kind of extract those important points. It helped me, so I am sure that it's going to help you all who are preparing for this SC 900. After that, you have got a lot of other certifications like SC 200, SC 400, SC 300, AZ 500, MS 500. So that is where you are planning to move into security side on cloud, becoming a cloud security engineer. But this is getting started with SC 900. So I'll be coming up with some practice questions later, which is going to be helpful. But I would request, please go through this video till end, go through all the terms, and if it's being helpful to you all, please mention that in comments, so it's going to be helpful for others also. And I'll be surely coming up with some other practice questions for SC 900, which is going to be helpful. Thank you. I'll see you in some other video.